Good evening, non-existent viewers. This is a video I've been putting off for a few weeks now, and I really apologize. My year has gone off to a stressful start. My zoo internship here in Nebraska ended on Wednesday. If you guys saw the video I posted yesterday, you probably know that. And I'm gonna be moving back to Colorado on Monday, so I'm really determined to make these two videos like sometime tomorrow or Sunday, before I leave and head back to Denver to hang out with family for 5 weeks. Yeah, this is sort of like a continuation of the mini series of like top 5 and top 9 videos I began at the start of January. And again, I was hoping to make all these videos in a span of like 7 days. So once again, my apologies for that. But this has been like a tradition on my channel ever since 2019. Back then I made 2 videos. Actually, just one video. I was like honoring my top 5 favorite movies that came out in 2009 because those movies turned 10 years old that year. And I continue that tradition, with 2020 I did like my top 5 favorite movies 2010. And 2021 I made my top 5 favorite movies of 2011 as well as 2001. And back in December, like on Christmas Eve, I did like my top 5, best movies of 2002 and 2012. So instead of pushing these 2 videos off until like October or November or December again, I figured might as well just knock them out now in January while the year is still young. And this video I'm gonna dive into my top 5 favorite movies of 2013. And again, sometime before I move back to Colorado, I'm gonna make another video for my top 5 favorite movies of 2003. This video is going to honor the films that turned 10 years old this year, and the other video is going to honor the films that turned 20 years old this year. I've been very excited for both these videos to make. And 2013 was the year I started making YouTube videos. Like 2 days after my 15th birthday, I uploaded my very first video, Scary Insect. And 2013 was not only the year I started YouTube, but also it was just like the year I found my love of cinema. I just really fell in love with movies. I mean, I've always watched a lot of movies growing up as a kid, but like 2013 was the year I really just discovered like a passion for cinema. And yeah, these movies that I'm going to discuss, they mean, I can't believe they're turning 10 years old because these films mean a lot to me. But first, I do have some honorable mentions. Despicable Me 2, The Conjuring, Warm Bodies, Frozen, You're Next, The Way Way Back, Catching Fire, Saving Mr. Banks, and American Hustle. All those are very well done films, and I'm really happy they're turning 10 years old this year, and I'm bummed I couldn't put them on the list. These 5 movies, again, this list is based completely off of my opinion, and just from the films from 2013 that I've seen. I'm sure there's some really great movies that came out in 2013 that I just haven't, that I unfortunately have missed. And if you guys have your own pick for best movie 2013, or your top 2, top 3, 5, 10, 20, whatever it is, let me know in the comments down below, and without further ado, let's get into it. Number 5! This is kind of like an unorthodox film to crack a top 5 list for sure, but I got This Is the End. Oh my goodness, this movie was like, again, when I didn't see it in theaters because I wasn't old enough to watch R-rated movies, not my parents at the time, but like I remember watching it on demand and just laughing so hysterically at the scene when Danny McBride nuts all over James Franco's porno magazine. They start yelling at each other, and Seth Rogen is like, obviously he's biting his lips trying not to burst out laughing because they're just like yelling at each other, be like, oh, I will come on this, I'll come on that. It's like, oh, why don't I come on you? And 15-year-old me was just laughing hysterically. And this film, I think it's very meta, and it's like the entire cast plays themselves, which at the time was really unique and really creative to me. And it's a film about like the rapture of the apocalypse that was foretold in the end of the New Testament Revelation. I was raised Catholic, and I think anyone who's been watching my videos since high school probably knows that I was like on the youth ministry in high school. Like I got confirmed at the end of my freshman year of high school, and I joined the youth ministry that my sophomore year. And at the time when I first watched this film, there's a lot of themes about like demons and the devil and like the rapture and like, oh, people are going to heaven, people are going to hell, and like this movie, their whole objective is like get to heaven so they before a bunch of demons devour them. Again, this is not a faith-based movie. This is the end. It's not a Christian movie, but it's a very secularized version of the rapture and the second coming of Christ. It's very like watered down, and yeah, don't expect your church to play this on the church's movie nights. But at the time, being the as involved with my local like church as I was back then, I just thought it was really cool that there was like a mainstream comedy made by Seth Rogen and James Franco about like, you know, a religiously charged topic, you know, the rapture. It's like Seth Rogen, James Franco, Danny McBride, Jay Burchell, Jonah Hill, and Craig Robinson all just being stuck in like James Franco's mansion, just like having to deal with dwindling supplies and cabin fever. This movie is just, it's comedy gold. I promise you guys that. The Hobbit, The Desolation of Smaug. You know, I have a weird relationship with the Hobbit films because Lord of the Rings trilogy is that whole trilogy of films I compact into like one movie and just call that like my favorite movie of all time, the Lord of the Rings trilogy. And The Hobbit had some very big fills issue, and I understand why it pissed off so many, like, you know, Tolkien fans because of, you know, they took a 130-page book and split it into 3 movies. Yeah, the Hobbit movies, they don't work super well as adaptations for that reason, but they do, in my opinion at least, work very well as just like on their own terms as films. I think the Hobbit films are fantastic. The one criticism I definitely agree with, though, is the over-reliance on CGI, because there's a lot of like green screen and a lot of visual effects in you know, all 3 Hobbit films, while the Lord of the Rings trilogy, they used a lot more like real sets and like practical effects, and I feel like the Hobbit movies could have benefited from that. But of course, you know, they gotta please the crowds, so they just use a lot of CGI. But yeah, Desolation of Smaug is my favorite out of the 3 Hobbit films. Again, I love Martin Freeman as Bilbo. I love Ian McKellen once again as Gandalf. I love the dwarves, and Orlando Bloom returning as Legolas. I know Legolas wasn't in the Hobbit book, and that one elvish chick that they introduced just for the movie, yeah, wasn't in the book either. But again, all the characters were just so badass, and all the action scenes. And Smaug, the one and only Smaug, the motion capture provided by Benedict Cumberbatch was just it's up, like, you know, obviously my favorite motion capture performance of all time is Andy Serkis as Gollum in the Lord of the Rings trilogy, but Benedict Cumberbatch as Smaug was he was so menacing, and he actually spent a lot of time at the London Zoo at the Reptile House, like studying, like observing lizards and snakes, and he tried matching their movements into getting like Smaug's movements correctly, and every time Smaug is on screen, you just cannot take your eyes off him. And the ending to this film, I remember seeing this movie in theaters with my friends. The ending of the film, right before it launches the credits, that Ed Sheeran song, we were just like, are you kidding me? This cliffhanger is ridiculous! Like, oh man, we were just, and because of that, we were so hyped about, like, the 3rd film, even though, like, A Battle of 5 Armies was arguably, like, the weakest link in the whole, like, you know, Middle-earth franchise, but, you know, that is what it is. But yeah, Desolation of Smaug, excellent action scenes, love the characters, the writing. Again, not super great as an adaptation, but definitely great as a film. And yeah, I just, Middle Earth, I have, you know, The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings movies and other like fantasy classics to thank for inspiring me as a creative person. You know, I share this a lot in my videos. I graduated from CSU with a degree in English with a concentration in creative writing, and I want to write fantasy and sci-fi myself. And I hope I can make that as like a side hustle with my zoo career. And yeah, I have Tolkien's works to thank for that. And Peter Jackson, the director, just brought the world to life in the best way. Number 3! This is a film, I said this, like, I just remembered, I did make a favorite movies of the year list, you know, back in 2014, like right before the Oscars were hosted. I just talked about like my 12 favorite movies of 2013, but that wasn't like a coherent list or ranking. It was just me sharing my 12 favorite movies of that year. And I felt like I rewatched that movie, that video that I made as like a 15-year-old back in 2014 to get ready for this video, and oh my goodness, watching that video again like 9 years later, that was a trip down memory lane. But yeah, I said in that video that this is a film that I'm going to remember for a very, very long time. And even though I've only watched this film once because it is way too depressing to rewatch, honestly, I still remember this movie very much and will for the rest of my time. That is 12 Years a Slave. This took home the Oscar for Best Picture, and is very not difficult to see why. The direction, the performances, the writing. This film is like brutally like accurate. Like it's unapologetically accurate of how they portrayed the slave trade in America before the Civil War. And Chiwetel Ejiofor, God, I'm butchering his name, and I'm very sorry. Yeah, he as Solomon Northup, as he's like kidnapped and sold as a slave for 12 years. And this film was Lupita Nyong'o's big break. Lupita Nyong'o, love Lupita Nyong'o. She's one of my favorite actresses, and she took home the gold for Best Supporting Actress. And again, just the harsh reality, like this film holds up a big mirror to America and our history of like oppressing minorities. And it's just oh my gosh, like Michael Fassbender as, you know, this horrible slave owner, just treating his slaves like absolute property. And I remember like seeing this film with my family in theaters, you know, back when it was, you know, buzzed for the Oscars and everything. My mom was sobbing at that scene when Michael Fassbender's just whipping Lupita Nyong'o's character. Just, it's, oh my gosh. Again, 12 Years a Slave is not a film I can watch casually. As a matter of fact, it might be that film that you just like watch it once and don't go back to it because it's just so like difficult to watch. But yeah, just the direction, the cinematography, the editing, everything. As a film, it's just such a. I can't. I'm dumbfounded. It's turning 10 years old this year because it's a classic. Number 2. No! Okay. Captain Phillips. I am aware of like the controversies surrounding this film as to whether it was truly like historically accurate to like the hijacking of the Maersk Alabama or whatever the ship was called, you know, off the coast of Somalia. I hear that like people tried suing the company after the whole incident because they knew they were sailing into pirate infested waters, which that was not really touched base on in the film, not that I remember at least. And yeah, they probably should have done so. But yeah, Tom Hanks as a titular Captain Phillips, and the brand new actors who play the pirates in this film. Look at me, I'm the captain now. It's like, oh my gosh, that dude this film was terrifying. It was gripping, it was intense. Like, I was just watching it on the edge of my seat. And the horrifying thing is that this film is based on true events. This actually happened. Captain Phillips having to save his crew from a group of armed pirates in Somalia. And it's a really, and it holds like a mirror to humanity, like 12 Years a Slave, about like how good we have it in like developed countries, like, you know, these first world problems. Like, we complain about, you know, our car needing gas or not being able to pay our bills, or you know, our phone cell reception's not working, our internet's slow. But yeah, in Somalia, people there's poverty, there's corruption, the government's like basically non-existent, and when you turn of age, like an AK-47 can solve a lot of your problems. And it's like those pirates, they're doing to this day, like, they're doing unacceptable things for understandable reasons because they just want a better life, and yet they resort to violence and being pirates and stealing from ships to do that. And and the score was just, the score was fantastic, and the ending was so brutal and heartbreaking as well. This film just has everything. Like, this film was like, it was everything that it should have been, and it was more. Alrighty, my number one favorite movie 2013 is The Wolf of Wall Street. Oh my goodness. This film was, I think to this day, it holds like the record for most F-bombs in a single film, 569 F-bombs, if my memory is correct. And it's 3 hours of all those F-words and all the nudity and sex and prostitutes and the drugs and the drinking and the partying. Just like my friends and I, one of my favorite memories from my freshman year of high school was when my friends and I bought tickets to see Walking with Dinosaurs and snuck into the theater showcasing The Wolf of Wall Street. Because I remember like seeing the commercials for The Wolf of Wall Street that, like, you know, around Christmas that year. And I asked my mom, like, hey, would it be cool if can I see The Wolf of Wall Street? And she was like, sure. And then a few weeks after I saw it, my parents saw it without me. My mom was like, Vaitai, if I knew how vulgar that film was, I would not have let you watch it. And I was like, yeah, parents don't watch this movie with their kids, and kids don't watch this movie with their parents. Again, at the time when my friends and I saw that film in theaters, it was like, At the time, it was the most debaucherous 3 hours of my life. And Leonardo DiCaprio as the titular Wolf of Wall Street as Jordan Belfort, and Jonah Hill also being up for the Oscar Best Supporting Actor, and Martin Scorsese's direction of that film was just, it was just so great. It was so funny and jaw dropping and just completely outrageous. This film, it set like a trend of like movies every year. Like we had War Dogs, we had like American Made, we had White Boy Rick. These movies are like based on true events of like infamous like American figures like throughout recent history. But the film is like, yeah, of course these movies, they take liberties with the craziness of these people's real lives. And this film was Margot Robbie's big break. Just like how 12 Years a Slave was Lupita Nyong'o's big break, this was Margot Robbie's big break. I love Margot Robbie. She's one of my favorite actresses, and we have The Wolf of Wall Street to thank for like kickstarting her career. Because she was so gorgeous as, you know, Jordan Belfort's trophy wife essentially. And yeah, it was this film. The things that Jordan Belfort, he is such a sleazebag. He cheats on his wife with, you know, Margot Robbie and leaves her only for Margot Robbie to divorce him at the end of the film as well. And all the money that, you know, he makes all this money not legally, and he blows it all like on, you know, drugs and hookers and, you know, just like materialism. It's like, as a 15-year-old, this was the movie that had me promising myself that like I would never let money or materialism get the better of me. Like my dad used to be a stock analyst in New York City, and I've heard like, you know, big businesses and people just being super greedy and be like, no, in all honesty, maybe I don't want to be a billionaire, and I don't need like to be you know, super like wealthy. I don't need a giant mansion or a super fancy car or a yacht or a private jet. Like I don't need any of this, like this luxury that America idolizes as much as it does. Like, you know, I don't, maybe honestly I mean, again, I'm sad about leaving Nebraska soon, but like nearly 10 years later, I'm 24 and I just ended a zoo internship, and yeah, I have a 1-bedroom apartment. Again, if I got the job and stayed here in this like single bedroom apartment and just like lived my routine, I'd be A-okay with that. And even if I do become like stupidly rich one day, like if I do ever become like a billionaire, say like, oh, I publish a best-selling novel, or my YouTube channel by some freaking miracle gets over like millions of subscribers, and I just like make a load of money and don't know what to do with, I would probably have like a small house. Like I would have a tiny house and a giant backyard. I'll grow my own trees, I'll have my own lake and stuff like that. And I'll just rescue a bunch of pugs. I'll have a whole grumble of rescue pugs. And yes, a grumble is a group of pugs. I think we'd be pretty grumbly too if our skulls are as deformed as theirs. But yeah, there you guys have it. My top 5 favorite movies of 2013. Man, I can't believe these movies are turning 10 years old this year. That is ridiculous. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. And if you enjoyed, please hit that thumbs up like button and subscribe to my channel, please. And yeah, I'll get to work on my favorite movies of 2003 list as well when I get a chance. You guys are the best. Have a good night and stay beastly.